Hi Bookends! Welcome to this week's 10-minute book review. I'm 10. This review is going to be formatted slightly differently than the other reviews that have been on this channel. The review itself on the merits of the book will be what you'll see first. That'll be the first couple of minutes of the video. The second part of the video will be my feelings on the book and its content. So if you just want to see a review on the book itself, that'll be the first part, and I will let you know when my feelings on the book are about to be shared. So, yes, this week's book review is going to be on Queen of the Conquered by Kacen Callender. We like to start off every review with a star point, as in out of 10 stars, how many stars this particular book garner, and a rating, as in if this was a movie, what would it be rated? Star point. This book garnered 6 out of 10 stars. It was well written. Rating. It is a PG-13. There are no explicit scenes. There are explicit descriptions of people who are already dead, or descriptions of them right after they died, like directly after they died. But there are no explicit sex scenes, and there's also no explicit language. So if this went page to screen or page to film, it'd probably end up being about a PG-13. Jumping right on in, this story follows the Anastasia troupe with a young lady who is a part of a noble family who is murdered. She herself is spared by a house servant or a slave who, when she sees her, Sigourney, that's the main character's name, Sigourney's family being murdered, ushers her to a secret passageway in which she runs and is befriended and taken care of by another woman. No one knows that she's survived because a slave girl from her plantation was put into one of her dresses and murdered. So it appeared as though she was murdered along with her family. To give you some context, Sigourney is black, her family is black. They live on these islands which have been taken over by a fictitious European country, and just like how slavery took place in America and other countries, black people are used as cattle, and those who are able to buy their freedom must work upwards in order to become on the same level or somewhere near the same level as their white counterparts. So she lives on a plantation. Her family benefits from living on a plantation. Her family owns slaves, and her mother promised that one day she would free all the slaves on her property, on her island of Rose. Fast forwarding, she becomes they have some odd word for basically the mistress or owner of a plantation on another island where her great cousin on her father's side lived. She actually had him murdered, and so but he didn't know that he was being murdered. It was a slow poison, and I believe it was by oleander. There's something in the oleander flower that can kill people. I'm not 100% sure if that's true or not, but that's what happened in the book. It was put into his tea, and over months he died. But before he died, he named her as the heir to his land and sugarcane business because he had no heirs of his own. He had no children. So when we actually get to meet Sigourney, like when we actually get to meet her fully, she is an adult at the age of 20. She has a large plantation. Basically, the island that she lives on is a plantation. So she's not a queen, she is a plantation owner. She owns people. And it's on a sugarcane plantation. So I'm sorry, I'm going to get through this review. I'm going to get through this review professionally, and then we can go into other things. So she is the owner of this plantation, and she has no interest in freeing the slaves because she says that they are her key to power. If she did not have the slaves, who are her own people, if she did not have the slaves, then she would have nothing. And so she must keep them as slaves. And she gives them no extra consideration that you would think a black person who owns slaves might give other black people. She treats them just as cruelly as they would be treated if they were owned by white people. When we meet her as an adult, we see that she's riding through her island because there's been some kind of slave uprising. And she has gone to quail that slave uprising and to see if there's anyone left to kill in it. When she arrives at the home where this slave uprising happened, she sees the plantation owners. So it's kind of like she owns the island, and she rents out certain plots of it to lower class white families, and they have their smaller plantations on her island, and she makes a profit from those smaller plantations with those slaves who still belong to her, as well as the plantation that she exclusively gets her sugarcane from to be sold. So it's kind of like a landowner and a rental situation, but all the slaves are hers. So when she comes, she sees that the plantation owners who are renting land from her are dead. There turns out to be some survivors from the slave uprising. However, the survivors are not the ones who actually did the slave uprising. They are actually slaves themselves of the people who were killed. It's said that the slaves who did the uprising came from another island, and that those slaves were not only killing the slaves' masters, they were killing the slaves themselves because they believed the slaves to be loyal to these masters. Sigourney has a special power where she's able to read people's minds and plant thoughts in people's minds and also see their memories. It's called craft, and anyone who has craft is to be killed. It's not magic, it's something that someone is born with. So it's not like witchcraft, it's something that someone's born with. It's like an X-Men type power. It's said that the girl has it as well, and the order the law is that if someone has it, they must be killed. So, except for if you are of nobility, which Sigourney is of nobility. So she does not hesitate. She has the girl executed. And one of the slaves spits at Sigourney's feet. She's like, "You're no better than us. You think that you're better than us. You think that you're like the whites, but you're not like the whites. You're just like us, and one day they'll turn on you too." Sigourney says that she could have had her killed, but shows the old woman. Now, this is the thing. She goes into the woman's memories because she can do this. And she sees that the woman has been brutally raped in her past. This is an old woman, a very old woman. She's so old, she has whites on the brown part of her eyes, so probably cataracts. The woman has been brutally raped in her youth. She watched her sister and her mother be brutally raped. Her feet, the bottoms of her feet were sliced open. Her palms were burned. She was brutally whipped. She sees all of this in the woman's past. And her version of showing mercy to this woman is forcing her to bend down and kiss her feet. Later on, where Sigourney gets back to her plantation home, her manor, whatever you like to call it, she forces a guard who thinks that he may have a semblance of love for her. She forces him to have sex with her. It's not an explicit scene, but it's made very clear. She knows that he does not want to have sex with her. It's made very clear that he does not want to have sex with her. And he says that as gently as possible because, you know, he's a slave, so he can't exactly say no. But he tries to say it as gently as possible, and she persists. She looks into his mind and sees that perhaps the reason why he thinks that he loves her is his coping mechanism trying not to hate her. So a common thing that victims will sometimes do to try to rationalize the situation that they're in is say, this person is doing ABC to me because they love me, not because they hate me, and therefore I love them too. It's a way of trying to make the pain of the situation more tolerable. Sigourney has no issue with using her own people to get what she wants. She has no problem with ordering her people to be killed. She has no problem with assisting in her people being killed. She has no problem with killing her own people firsthand. The aim of this book, or the plot of this book, is that she is trying to get revenge for what took place to her family 10 or 15 years or so ago. And she plans on accomplishing this by marrying the son of the man and woman who planned the massacre of her family. And in doing this, she does not care how many other black lives she has to get rid of or step over in the process. So she wants to ruin the lives of this one white family, and she's willing to kill countless and be a part of killing countless black people in the process, because she sees herself as better than the other blacks around her, even though she is the exact same shade. She's received freedom from the whites, and so she feels as though she is in some way above them. And you know, I can feel my opinion about to come out on this book, so I'm going to stop with that. The reason why this book received a 6 is because it is well written. We stay within the mind of this one person, and her thoughts are articulated very well. It is well detailed. The world around her is well described. The world building is well described. The characters are fleshed out. Whether they are likable or not is personal opinion, but the characters are fleshed out. The story arc is seen towards the end of it, but it is there, and the plot is conclusive. It stays where it is. It doesn't meander. So once you find out what the plot is, the book sticks with it. It stays on that line. Here's my personal opinion on this book. This book stars a race traitor. This book stars an albiest. This book wants the reader to sympathize with and commiserate with a collaborator. So in American slavery, there were quite a few of these type of people, these Uncle Toms, these people who value their comforts, not even their life, their comforts over the lives of their own people, and who were more than happy to sacrifice the lives of even family members so that they could have just little pieces of comfort that would be provided to them by slave owners. I cannot, under any circumstances, condone a book, no matter who it is written by, that says this type of behavior is in any way okay. I cannot in any way condone a book that says allowing this type of behavior to continue is okay. It's made very clear in the book that the other black people in the story are doing nothing more than trying to fight for their freedom. But because their freedom is counterintuitive to what Sigourney wants, which is revenge for the murder of 4 people, the freedom of all those other people who are just like her own people, are worthless in her eyes. And she has made that very clear over and over and over again. And the book stays in her mind, which means as the reader, you stay in her mind. And it tries to capture this feeling of, well, I must do this to achieve that. It almost tries to get you to sympathize with the evil that she's doing. her plan is to marry the son of the people who had her family assassinated. And she does marry the son of the people who had her family assassinated. And she does not love the man who is the son of the people who had her family assassinated. But guess what? The father of the man who had her family assassinated fathered a half-black child. She forces him into her bed too. She makes him a part of her guard. He falls in love with her, even though he has no agency of his own. There is an uprising that happens in her home. And there is a slave girl by the name of Agatha who wants nothing more than to be free. Absolutely nothing more in the world than to be free. And when Agatha dies, all Sigourney can say is that, well, you know, I appreciated that she wanted to be free, but if she was alive right now, I wouldn't be. The protagonist is a self-serving, selfish, evil person. And as the reader, you are forced to live in this person's mind. And it is as if the author wants you to find some semblance of commonality with this person who can't even find commonality with the people who look like her and sound like her and have the same blood and heritage as her. This book is not recommended. This is the second book that we've read by Kacen Callender that has been in some way anti-black, despite Kacen Callender themselves appearing to be a black person. We always like to give people a second chance when the first review is not the best, because of course maybe sometimes it's just that particular book that's off. But after Felix Ever After and now Queen of the Conquered, this author is no longer on our radar. I can appreciate if I have friends, you know, on BookTube and otherwise who like this author. That's 100% okay. You are more than welcome to like this author. This author is off of any of our lists. We will not be reading any more books by this author. We will not be contributing financially to this author. We will not be buying anything from this author, whether it be a book, a novella. We will not be accepting any submissions from this author. Not that they would give any submissions, because once they see this, if they ever do see this, they probably won't like us. But that's okay. If this is how they feel about black heritage, if this is what they see slavery as, if this is the type of person that they want black people to identify with, we don't need them to like us. I am not 100% sure who this was made for. I am not sure of the audience that this was intended for. It can't be for the people who are ancestors of the slaves in this country or any other country, because we can't feel sorry for someone who collaborated with the people who wanted to keep us enslaved, because if those people were still allowed to be able to function, we would all still be slaves. I do not know what the target audience for this book is. I don't know how it got 5-star reviews. I want to believe that the people who read it weren't closed-minded. I want to believe that they weren't paid for reviews. I don't know how, you know, this is my personal opinion. I'm trying not to go on a rant. Trying not to. I'm failing. But that's because I was so, in the beginning, I was irritated by this book. And I didn't even want to finish reading it. Did not want to finish reading it. I forced myself to finish reading it. And to be honest, forcing myself to finish reading this book is like force-feeding yourself sand. If you have ever had sand in your mouth, imagine trying to force-feed yourself sand. That was the feeling I got when I forced myself to read this book. To give you some context, if you are not a black person, let's just say you're a white person, imagine that you got a book that is about a Jewish man who collaborated with the Nazis so that he could get nice things. And this is made to seem as though it's okay. This is the good guy. This is the hero. This is the protagonist of the book that you're supposed to identify with. Yeah, that wouldn't be cool, right? Or let's just say this is the Irish person or the Scottish person who collaborated with the English so that they could get some land, and you're supposed to identify with this person. You're supposed to like this person. You're supposed to be all for this person, even though they're trading on their own people and they're getting their own people killed and they're murdering their own people just so they can have nice things. This book is not recommended. Queen of the Conquered is not recommended for anyone, for any age group, for any reason. We do not recommend this book. I am so happy it was on sale for $1.99 on Amazon for Kindle. I'm so happy I did not contribute more money to this person for writing this book. In fact, I'm gonna erase this from my Kindle right now. Off my Kindle. I'm gonna try and go on Amazon, delete the book completely. I will never read this book again. I will never have a need for this book again. I have no idea how this book got past censors. I don't know if it had a sensitivity reader. Obviously it did not. I don't know how it got this far. I do not know. I do not know. But I do know for a fact that once again, I know I've mentioned this multiple times, but once again, I do not recommend Queen of the Conquered by Kacen Callender. And at this point, I can recommend nothing that they've written. Thank you for watching. This has been a 10-minute book review. If you like what you see, please like and subscribe.